first. So you can present first and then you don't have to stay around for everything else.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
All right, so it's 7 o'clock. We're all good. So to start off with, we would like to acknowledge this land that we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the Kaurna people today. Okay, item 2 is the attendance record. We have one apology, which is our new member, Ben Watkins, who's unable to be here because he's still waiting for sign-off from his company, which is imminent. So we're looking forward to having him at the next meeting. 2.3, are there any motions to grant a leave of absence? No. 2.4, just note the leave of absence Mayor Karen Redmond from 14th of March to the 14th of June 2025. And we have Deputy Mayor Shanks stepping into the hotspot. And 2.5, there's not any non-attendance, double negative. Item 3, are there any declarations of interest? No, none noted. All right. Item 4 is the confirmation of the previous minutes. We've got the last meeting, official meeting, which was the 4th of February, and the special audit and risk committee meeting that we had on the 1st of April. I'm assuming everyone's reviewed those. They've been published on the website. If there's no comments with that, then we've confirmed them. That's good. And then item 5. Sorry? I don't have a mover. Is Councillor Davies, seconder Christine? All in favour? Carried unanimously. And then item 5, is there any business arising from those minutes? None noted. Okay, so if we move to the agenda, so I'd like to move that I'm going to get these numbers wrong, move up that item 7 hang on, I haven't got the overview, 7.1 of the agenda. Hang on, here we go. Yeah, so 7.1 of the agenda, which is the External Auditor's Management Letter for their FY25 interim audit, be moved above item 6. So as we said, that Samantha can present on that, and then she's free to leave the meeting. Do I have a mover? Christine, seconder. Deputy Mayor Shanks, all in favour? Carried unanimously. All right, so if we go to 7.1 on page 74, we have the officer's recommendation is that we note the interim audit management letter. So if I hand over to you, Samantha from Dean Newbury, if you'd like just to provide an overview of your interim audit, what you found, and anything that we should note.
Thank you, Chair. So thank you. This is our first year of the new contract. So just for those to be aware that we previously audited the town of Gawler, I believe 5 years ago. So we do have some historical knowledge and retain that on the job. As part of the transition between auditors, we met with the previous auditors and they gave us a briefing, and as part of our role is to ensure that the 2024 balances are correct, and we have substantiation for that. So we've done all that. Also, just for more information for you, we don't report everything that we do as opposed to what your previous external auditors did, where they gave you a list of all the controls and the results of what they tested. We report more by exception. We find that this sort of then targets the area and provides a bit more detail, and so that you can focus on, or we can focus on those controls. And so that's the way that we do our reporting. So that might be a bit different than what you've previously seen. So as you can see on the first page of our letter, it summarises all of the controls that we have looked at, and then the rest of the report sort of goes through a number of internal controls that we believe we identified that should be somewhat strengthened. However, as you can see from this report, although there is a couple of issues with user access and supplier master file changes and things like that, overall, there's nothing of any critical or serious nature in our findings, and it's very much some standard control issues that we see at many different environments, and so there's nothing there that I would, suggest is high risk. What we actually found is a very good internal control system, a very mature system, and we believe that the internal controls of the council are a very good, strong foundation. I can go into more detail into any point, or I'm happy to take perhaps any specific questions anyone may have.
Yep. Are there any questions or comments for Samantha? Christine?
Just a question on the finding on the Gawler Aquatic Centre management, and there was an audit point about measuring patronage, and then management answered that that wasn't correct. So I'm just wondering if the auditors discuss their findings with management before publishing, because now when I read this report, there's two points of view on that, and I don't know which one's factually correct.
Yes, we do provide a draft letter for management to discuss with us any of our findings before we actually finalise it and send it to the audit committee. I'm not sure. I did obviously read that response in the agenda as well. Mm-hmm. I haven't had any correspondence to have any evidence of how it works. So that would be something that we'll follow up.
Yeah, that would be good, so that we know what the facts are, and is the finding valid, or has it been fixed if it needed to be fixed?
Yep. Erin, did you want to comment on the process or anything like that?
I can just comment, and probably David can probably elaborate a little bit more on this, but the turnstiles were only implemented this financial year, or so it is a fairly new process, so there might have been some teething issues. Mm-hmm. And particularly the day that they were having some works done at the centre, so I think it put everyone into a little bit of a
yeah.
No, yeah, but I'll hand it over to David.
David, did you want to?
So through the chair, just to reflect that we do record patron attendance. Every single person who comes through those doors is tracked as an attendee, and a payment is entered if required. Sometimes payments aren't required, so if you're a supervising spectator, you're not a payment required. However, you are registered as an attendee of the facility. So we do have that patronage data, which is why our commentary from management was we do collect that data. It certainly won't align individual entry with individual payment, because some people get in for free, and that's the way of the operations of the centre. But we do have records on all of that.
Yeah, because the way that I interpreted it is that you've got controls in place that people can't get in unless, they're allowed in, or they pay, or, they've got a card. But is there actually a reconciliation done at the end of the day, the till versus the attendance, or are you sort of relying on that control that there's restricted access?
So through the chair, a reconciliation to attendance isn't really going to help us, because we will do a reconciliation in terms of cash to people who are required to pay. There are still attendees who enter the facility without a payment, so the reconciliation would be to a zero payment, and that does occur through the banking processes that we implement in terms of the cash takes and end of day settlements.
Yeah.
patron attendance, revenues, all those sorts of things.
Yep. So basically you're saying there's mitigating controls around, so I think what the auditors suggested, there's a reconciliation done. You're saying, well, you know, you've got the tills reconciled to the cash taken and you're happy with that process. Are you happy with that, Christine? Yeah, okay, cool. Yep. All right. Are there any other questions for Samantha? Comments? No. Councillor Davies? Any? Nothing? Yep.
I guess this is that time in our processes where we've actually got some new management techniques across the arms of the business of council, and then we've also got a new auditor finding their feet as well. So the feeling out process is how I'm viewing this initial go. You know, appreciate the thoroughness that we really got into the business side of things and noting door openings and whatever else. I guess there's going to be that relationship building that's going to go forward, and if it is a consistent problem, problems, we will have to sort of manage those moving forward. But I guess overall, I wasn't necessarily dissatisfied with some of the reasonings that came through, and I wasn't actually dissatisfied with the thoroughness of the conversation, to be honest. You know, we probably haven't seen some of that in the past, so I think, you know, thanks to both sides of the process, but realistically, you're in your infancy, and where we're actually going to see this start paying dividends is when you do get through a 12-month process, and then you do have that baseline data to then go back and track improvements and the like. So, yeah.
I just regard it as Murphy's Law that the day the auditors visited, the door was open.
Yes, I agree.
You've got some very observant audit team members there, Samantha.
They are on it, yes. It is their job.
But further to what Councillor Shank said is that it was really refreshing to read, to find some extra issues, because we have had the same audit team for 5 years, and I did feel like we were, you know, each year sort of be the same things were found. So well done to you and your audit team to pick up other things, and you know, well done to management. I can see the comments and the items are being addressed, and I'm fairly sure like that first one with the different access, IT access, you know, segregation of duties. I'm sure nothing untoward was happening. It was just that person didn't realise they had the keys to the candy jar, really. So yeah, so that's good to see. Yes. So yep, I think we're all happy with that. You've scheduled in your final end of year visit, Samantha. What are the steps from here?
I need to check with Erin. Have we scheduled it in?
Yep.
Yes.
So end of September. Yep. Cool.
Okay. Right. Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes. So yes, our next is we will focus on the 30 June audit. We will, yes, again, use the same portal system to upload information, and it will also include a on-site visit for part of the balance date audit. I will then come and attend your audit committee meeting where the financial statements are presented in October, and that process is pretty similar to what you've had in previous years.
Yep. Okay, very good. All right, well, thank you, Samantha. Have I got, so the recommendation is to note the audit management letter. Do I have a mover? Christine will move it, I'll second it. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Samantha, for your time, and you make sure you pass on our thanks to your team as well for doing such a thorough job, and we will see them in September.
Thank you, and we'll see you perhaps in person for the the financial statement presentation meeting. I
Brilliant.
think that would be appropriate. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right, so which is the third budget update. So do I have someone who would like to speak to this wonderful document? Erin, you're up.
Okay, so the operating deficit now has reduced to 1.445 from 1.694, so that's really pleasing. We have completely addressed the savings target of 750, so that additional savings is on top of that 750, so that's really great as well. So this third review, we have placed a really strong focus on the operating result. We've got 9 months worth of data now, so it was, we should be at a point where we can forecast this next 3 months, so we're hoping that we fall really close to that 1.445. We do have carry forwards of 4.853, so if you've got any questions, I might handball those ones to Wendy. And then we have savings in the capital projects of 1.587. Now, just be really clear that that actually includes 628,000 of projects that we have already included in the budget next year. So whilst we're treating them as a saving, we're not carrying forward them, we've got them in the budget, the full budget for next financial year. And all the indicators remain also within council policy, so policy ranges. So if there's any questions, happy to take them.
Thank you.
Hopefully we've answered all your questions in the report though.
Yep. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, just one that I was struggling to understand. Table 3 on page 7. It says council has identified savings that now surpass the annual savings target, but it's listed as an expenditure. I just couldn't really quite get my head around what was happening there with the accounting.
And so which page are you on? Say it again.
Page 7 of the agenda, I believe. It's table 3, explanation of expenditure adjustments. $67,000 expense. Council has identified savings that now surpass the annual savings target. The remaining savings previously required amounted to $67,000, which, I don't know, I was just a bit confused by.
Yeah, Erin, do you want to clarify that? Because I didn't read it twice.
Sorry, through the chair. So we had a remaining balance of 67,000 as of the mid-year budget review. So that's what we had left that we needed to address. So the savings that we've found is another 67,000. So that completely wipes out that savings target. So that's the balance that we required for this review.
So, clearer? So it's a double negative, so it's favourable. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Through Madam Chair, Erin, is it possible to articulate, was it from a particular area or was it a conglomerate of things? I think just maybe for the
it was overall. So we've taken all the savings that we've had throughout all of the business units, and that's what we had left. So instead of saying it was another 67,000, we've wiped out that savings target. It's a bit, just trying to think of the best way to explain it. So when you look at the expenditure budget, we had 67,000 that we needed to find in savings throughout all of the business units. So we were able to do that. So it's from a range of different places. Yeah, so not one thing in particular.
Yeah, so you had the savings were built in there, and then you've, rather than offsetting them against more savings, you've put all the other savings you've identified in, but then you've taken out that original 67. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Yes.
I think I get it. Yeah. You could have netted it, but yeah. No, I get it now. Cool. All right. Any other questions, Christine?
Just one, I found the reading test. In page 9 and page 10, this is in table 5. it talks about a new street lighting program savings, $34,000 on page 9, and then it talks about the same amount and the same words again on page 10. So I'm just wondering if that's a double counting.
It is, well, it's not double counting, but it was in as a carry forward, but we took it out as a carry forward and put it into a savings. So we just need to remove that for the council agenda. Thanks, Christine.
Okay.
She's found the Easter egg. Okay. Any other questions or comments? No, Councillor Davies?
Yeah, just on page 7 again, just says a decline in patron attendance at skating sessions has impacted revenue by $24,000. Is that seems like a large amount for the skating sessions to have declined in attendance? Is there any story behind that, or is that I'm just curious.
So through the chair, we can anecdotally say cost of living pressures and it being what you call discretionary spending for people to attend those skating sessions. Historically, we've hit all of our targets for skating attendance. This current financial year, it's been really low in numbers across the board, month by month, and so we were never going to meet the ambitious target by the end of the financial year, so we had to correct for that. We have had savings in some staffing costs as a result. It's been positive, though, on the flip side, that we've had increased spending in our kiosk centres. So there's been a revenue stream that we didn't have before coming through. So the people attending are actually secondary spending, but we're having lower attendance overall.
All right. Any other questions? Questions? Yep.
I think, you know, as we're implementing our budget moving into the next financial year, with our sort of, I guess let's call it a new approach for the sake of the exercise. These quarterly review reports are really handy because I know sort of how to read them, and I'm saying that loosely. I'm still trying to teach myself a couple of things here and there. But I see them as a really handy vehicle for the milestone checks, which you are communicating, don't get me wrong, but to really, is there an opportunity, I guess, to use these reports to really dumb it down, and I say that in lack of a better term, to identify some of the key performance measures that we're trying to hit quarter by quarter, half yearly by half yearly, annually. So we can actually then show the tracking, and as a headline piece, people can actually quickly read it, or we can speak to it into the chamber, or however it works, that it actually shows you process of budget of, you know, 3 months in we're hoping to achieve this, and here's where we achieved it and how we achieved it. I know the information's there, but it's more about trying to condense it into an easy graphic to follow. Just something that's a bit easier to sell, in lack of a better term, if you don't speak accounting, that arms us as the elected body to say, hey, we understand that you're sceptical about the budget, but here's how we're meeting our targets, simply put, without reading the report that you put a lot of time into and really appreciate. But it does give those outlines, those headlines, and equally, if we don't meet one of those targets, we transparently actually need to show that too, and show our correction where we're going to, look, unfortunately we're hoping to get here, but we're here, which means we're a month behind getting there, and here's our strategy to get back there without actually having a net effect in that 12-month period. Is any of that making any sense? Yeah, I'm just asking to be armed with some real quick headlines that I can go out and we can go out and spruik the good work of the performance of our new management technique.
I think it's a good point that so then you're all seeing off the same song sheet, and you kind of in a snapshot and in layman's terms you can communicate the quarterly position. But this report, Erin, this is really well written, and I love the analysis of each of the projects. I still love that grant funding that you found, the 406. But it just, reading it, I think, I feel really comfortable that you understand what you're looking at, you understand the numbers, and you've really thought about it. I like the ones that, and you articulated that, we don't need to go ahead with that project because one of them was that you didn't have to use a consultant because you realised you had the internal capability to do it, which I thought was, is really practical. Also, the projects that you don't want to, you don't need to go ahead with all projects. If it's not applicable anymore, then don't go ahead with it. So I could see a lot of thoughts gone into it. So well done, team, on that. And it made sense. And you can see it's been a tough year, but it's all sort of coming together. You can sort of see the projects and the carry forwards, and we've got a slightly better position. So that was good. Well done. Just double check I haven't got any. I think that was everything. Any other questions? Nope. So you can see the officer's recommendation on the screen there. Do I have a mover? Christine, seconder. Councillor Davies, all in favour? Carried unanimously. So that was 6.1. Point 2 is the Treasury Management Report. Erin, did you want to speak to this one? You've been busy, Erin.
Through the chair. So this report is just a standard report that we provide to the Audit and Risk Committee on a quarterly basis. The difference with the Treasury Management Report this quarter is that we are seeking, we're proposing, to enter into a convertible cash debenture loan for 2 years to replace a maturing CAD. So we're not increasing our loans, we are just replacing one that's about to mature, so we can still keep the loan borrowings, I think, at 40 mil. So we've been pretty clear about so we'll fix it, it's almost fixed for 2 years at 4.3%. Do I have anything? That's it. So, yeah, so I'll take the report as read.
So in layman's terms, there was a $2 million facility that's just finished, being completed, and then you're just re-entering it. And if you look at that table at the bottom of page 40, you can see that the 2-year CAD rate is the best rate to enter into. It's a 2-year commitment, it's reasonable, and then it makes sure that all our indicators are going the right way as well.
Correct. Thanks, Natalie. Yes, perfect.
Cool. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Davies?
And just, I guess, just any commentary on fixed versus a variable loan at this stage?
Yeah, so through the chair, so we've done some analysis. It's actually cheaper. I think there's a $28,000 difference in fixing it to doing it as variable. I think we just need to keep in mind that we're not really in a position to probably pay back that CAD in that period. So it's better for us to do it as a convertible cash debenture.
Yep. And I think, Councillor Davies, you were on the Audit Committee during the COVID ride. And, we made the decision that, it's good to sort of almost have a 50-50 fixed and variable because we had no idea which way the interest rates were going to go. So now that hopefully the economy's stabilising, those fixed facilities were only in place until 2027. So once they come up for renewal, then we can work out what the best option is with the economy at the time. Yep. Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, look, I took this report as sort of business as usual. If we're not reviewing these things and looking at these opportunities, then we're probably not doing it justice. Realistically, you have to weigh up a 2-year term with the ability to forecast what your interest rate's going to be is a cleaner way. If you're talking about a 5 or a 10 year, yeah, there might be some benefits from doing that variable, but you have a little bit of time to ride that wave, whereas a 24-month process, you're going to be up for the review at that time as well, and it actually forces you to review at that time, which we're actually seeing play out, and there might actually be a different facility or a different opportunity come online in that time. But yeah, no, I appreciate you seeing the opportunity, and I do understand how it is going to mean that you can actually plan a bit better without, you know, a global event happening and all of a sudden an interest rate spikes. Equally, you don't benefit from if something crashes, but I think we're in a bigger problem if if that comes about. So yeah, no, look, there was again nothing that was screaming out in this one.
Yep. All right. If there's no more questions or comments, the recommendation's up on the screen. Do I have a mover? Christine's the mover of the night. Seconder, Deputy Mayor Shanks, all in favour, carry unanimously. I know, it's just like we're the Yes. All right, item 6.3 is the policy review schedule. And containing the policies that are overdue for review. Do I have someone who would like to speak to this one?
Through you as the chair. This initial schedule simply deals with the current policies which are referenced council adopted policies that are overdue for review, and has put together a schedule over the coming 12 months to address those. It is subject to change because there may be some staff, movement that might impact, but largely, particularly the ones that are scheduled for audit and risk, which in July there's a significant volume for governance, but I thought that was good to get those addressed sooner rather than later. It was a lot of thought went into putting this together. So it was first looked at those policies which were legislatively required and were overdue. Looked at grouping policies together, as well as those that had to have a risk, or they manage a risk, or those that are legislatively required and factoring in the meeting dates for the Audit and Risk Committee. So met with the executive managers to discuss the policies that were in their divisions, and went from there. So there was another spreadsheet sitting behind this one that informed the scheduling.
Yep. It's a huge piece of work.
And this is one aspect of it. So at the moment, working to finalise new templates for staff to use that are a bit more contemporary and a bit more easy to follow, not so dated with a lot of heavy administrative information on the front of a policy document that the public's going to access that doesn't have any necessary meaning for them, like internal reference numbers and things like that. So working to finalise templates for Chris and the executive managers to have a look at, as well as I'm calling it the policy toolkit. So it'll be, I've already drafted the governance framework, but it'll, which sets out for staff the process, but also putting together a sort of a how-to document that they can access if there's not a member of the governance team available at that minute to provide advice. And so working to finalise that to move ahead with the high-level project plan, which is on the second or third page of the report.
Yep, thank you. Chris, did you want to say something?
Just to add a few more comments about what the approach that shaped this review schedule. One, there's a lot of policies there which have reached the end of their purpose or the reason they were originally in place. So there'll be quite a number that we recommend to council that are simply repealed and not replaced.
Yep.
We also had regard for a number of policies that probably should be operational matters. So there'll be a number of policies that come to council saying, look, it doesn't need to be a council policy anymore. This will be taken care of as an operational matter. And conversely, in the organisation, I think over time, there were some operational policies that were getting confused as being council policies. So Susie and the team have done an immense amount of work to help extricate some of those conflicting or confusion matters and arrived at what's before you tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Christine?
Just a comment, I thought this was really good, logical approach, and I can see that you've got it under control and you've got a plan, much better than a lot of other places.
Yep. Councillor Davies?
Yeah, so some of these, I'm just looking at some of the, like we have a rural greenbelt policy, which, you know, the Greater Adelaide Regional Plan may have some thoughts about that one, you know, and a few things like along that line is there, but those don't seem to be up for review any time. Is there stuff that rather than, are we just going to potentially let things lapse once they reach end of life, or is there stuff that earlier than that would be reviewed?
So even though a policy may have gone past its review date, they're still classed as current. There's still a decision of council that holds true even though it hasn't been reviewed. So they will just remain in play. Now what will happen though, if a matter arises in the meantime that does require a different, you know, any logical consideration requires a different viewpoint, that will come back to council automatically. So that's the way we'll handle those.
Any questions? No? No, good. I just had the question about once you're finalising policies, and sorry if I've missed it in the commentary, are you, you know, is there training? Are you putting them on the intranet? How are you sort of releasing them across the organisation?
Sorry. So the policy governance framework that has been to the executive committee, there's a little bit of refinement as the project's sort of gone along. So I'll be refining that and it will go out to staff. That basically includes a whole section on the different modes of communication as required. So it may be if there's a suite of policies from the one division of council that we're recommending to be revoked because they're no longer required for our current operations, or other documents in place serve the purpose that they were serving, so it's kind of a duplicate, or if they're internal documents, they will basically, if they're recommended to be revoked, probably fairly simple communication in terms of updates, and I think there's some that require significant rewrite. We've put down things like Teams meeting, or having one of the relative staff members set up a meeting of staff, key staff, not necessarily whole teams if the whole team doesn't need to know. So from a governance policy perspective, I guess if there's things that in a policy that customer service might need to be aware of, in request for services policy, you know, reaching out to those who most need to know the updates. Nikita, who's the governance support officer, is into videography, so we're thinking of doing a few little videos and uploading those to the intranet. So if there's things that need more thorough explanation in the governance area potentially. I'm trying to think what else. So it was a lot more than just plain email as a means of communication. Little quizzes, online quizzes, not dissimilar to what's done with some of the WHS updates to test people's knowledge. Nothing too serious, but I'm trying to think a little bit broader than just an email that clogs up everybody's inbox. Obviously, for those policies that are legislatively required to be adopted by council, Chris has mentioned, and Sharon, that we would probably look to having an informational briefing session with members if there's significant updates required, or to even talk them through this a bit more, so they're aware that of the process that's occurring and the reasons behind it.
No, that sounds good. I just, lessons learned from my day job is that we've refreshed a whole lot of policies and procedures, but now they're bottlenecked. So try and release them. You've got to release them as you go, because if you hold them all back, then you can't. Now we're fighting over who's going to get finalised and which one's not going to get finalised, and they're all stuck. So I just send them off as you do.
Yeah.
It's my lesson learned.
Absolutely, because I guess these are all council adopted. So from the time that council determines that they're revoked, they're no longer in effect. So we have to make sure that communication is with the staff that may be aware a lot of them, I guess, is if they're outdated practices, more so in the revoked space, then potentially staff wouldn't have been following. But if there's a really if there's an update that's really sort of changed one aspect, we need to make sure that staff are aware of it, or they're not going to follow it. And I think that's a really good premise for the whole piece of work, is that we have so many policies and procedures. It's very difficult for staff to be able to adhere to them when there's 170 odd. So looking at really making our library more concise and making sure that education piece is there as well.
Pop quiz on them. No, but well done, because half of the challenge is starting and collating and working out how many policy procedures you've actually got and where the last version was saved and all that kind of thing. So well done on starting, and good luck in getting that done. All right. So I've got a recommendation to endorse the policy review schedule for the policies that are overdue for a review. Do I have a mover? Councillor Davies. Seconder, Christine. All in favour? Carried unanimously. All right. Item 6.4 is the first policy review. It's the hire of council-owned facilities policy. I've got someone that wants to talk to that one.
Through the Chair, this is very minor tweaking to the existing policy. All the parameters are staying the same, essentially. We have removed the anomaly that was created by error around spectators for the Gawler amateur swimming coming along and parents being able to come with their children, so that's removed from the policy position. And then there's been a whole heap of staffing changeover with position titling and that sort of thing around the assessment, but that's generally the changes to the policy.
So the parents don't have to pay?
The parents of the swimming club people do not have to pay to come in, and they haven't been charged. It was put into the policy by error last year.
Okay, that's good, because that's not good when that happens.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Are there any questions or comments? No. Just one question I had was with the council-owned facilities, you've had a think about the insurance and any insurance updates that are required. It was just sort of a thought that went through my head.
Yes, through the Chair, we require our hirers to have their insurances and provide certificates of currency, except for ad hoc one-offs, and council's insurance covers that adequately. Yep.
Cool. Because I've had my done a recent the annual insurance review, and the insurance landscape is changing so fast, and it's so expensive, especially with your public liability and all that. So it's one thing to keep in mind whenever you're looking at an asset, is to make sure it's got adequate insurance in case something goes wrong. All right, if there's no questions or comments, the officer's recommendations up there. Do I have a mover? I'll move it. Christine can second it. All in favour? Carried unanimously. All right, 6.5 is the expenditure policy. Do I have someone want to speak to that one? Yep, Renee.
Thank you. Through the Chair, in summary, the proposed amendments to the expenditure policy aim to strengthen internal controls, improve alignment between financial delegations and budget responsibility, and support better financial management practices. The key changes include a new triennial review cycle, clearer procurement compliance reference, updated terminology, and a revised delegation structure that better reflects operational accountability. These updates respond to recent procurement and transaction data analysis and supports Council's ongoing focus on transparency, efficiency, and financial sustainability. So I'll take the report as read and I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions, Councillor Davies?
So I understand, I guess moving it to triennial to have less policy things come up all the time, but it seems like there's a lot of minor changes that need to be made on a name of specific people's jobs level. Is that something that's going to become an issue over the course of 3 years?
Those are minor changes that would come under point 2 of the recommendation that the CEO could make. So it would just be a change of name, and we're trying to tighten up those name changes because it does impact kind of a lot of broader parts of the business than just this type of policy. Yeah.
Yep. Christine?
First of all, I'd like to say well done. Very unusual to see financial delegation limits reduced. So it indicates that people have actually thought this through. So my only question is on the specified transactions. So I'm on page 73. So something like payroll, where the senior HR payroll officer might have, I don't know, a limit of 2,500 or something low for every other transaction. But obviously payroll, part of their day job, is going to be much higher than their normal limit. So some of the things listed on this page do still impose a limit, like insurance renewals. Manager people and culture can do up to 300,000 and then has to go up higher. So I'm just wondering for payroll and taxation and the ones that don't mention a dollar amount, let's say the HR officer has a day-to-day limit of $2,000, but payroll is whatever amount it is. Is there any review, like say if these types of transactions fluctuate a lot, is there any sort of reasonableness review by that person? Because normally their limit's 2,000, but payroll is whatever it is, much higher amount. Or would it be appropriate that once it gets above some gigantic amount, because maybe it includes a termination payment or something unusual, that it should go to someone higher?
So with payroll, that's a process that we've been recently looking at, and the senior HR payroll officer generally doesn't have any delegation. It's usually the manager of people and culture who will sign off on the payroll reports. But what we're implementing now, and sorry, the senior HR and payroll, it's really only if that manager is away, so someone else can do the audit of it and review it. But what actually happens is the manager of people and culture looks at the payroll report and they're approving those individual amounts, but they don't approve it in the bank. It then actually comes to finance. So Erin and I will look at the report and look at it for reasonableness, and we'll check, a few of the figures just to make sure, there isn't anything going on. And if we have any questions, then we will go back and query, interrogate that. Why is it this much more? Or why is the manager of people and culture suddenly getting additional payments, that type of thing. So we definitely have mechanisms in place to mitigate that risk. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? No? With the reduction in the delegations, do you think that will impact workload, or you've done a review to make sure that that you're happy with those balances that won't sort of increase workload for people or bottlenecks and things like that?
So I actually went through all of the procurement approval data as well as all the individual transaction data, because most of these delegations relate to those individual transactions, and you'll find that people in my position, so I'd be management level 1, previously I had 200,000, I would never approve anything around that kind of value. So I really did look at positions and transactions and made sure I aligned that with what's required. So you'll see in like manager level 1, there's only 3 managers in that. The manager, like my position, so manager of finance and procurement, manager of infrastructure, and the manager of operations, because they are really the only people that are dealing with those higher dollar thresholds. The rest of the management team has been taken right down to $50,000 because they're just not dealing with that level of transaction, that value. Yeah, so we don't think there'll be, probably the biggest impact would be with those higher dollar figures in procurement processes where they will go to the CEO for that final approval as for the procurement process.
And what we found, I keep referring to my day job, but what we found in our day job is that if someone can approve something, if it's below, if someone's got the delegation to approve a transaction, they should approve that transaction. So our CE at the moment, and we didn't realise how much we were doing with procurement, everything was just going through to the CE, but we've got this new CE now and he's very firm on if someone else can approve it, he's not reviewing it. So, and that really helps with workload as well, because some people just go, oh, I don't know my delegations, we'll just keep putting it up to the CEO. So that's sort of the other sort of aspect of enforcing it, is to make sure that people are, approving things that they can approve and not just putting it up the chain. Okay, there's no more questions or comments. We've got the officer's recommendation on the screen there that we adopt the expenditure policy and also authorise the CEO to make minor changes if required. Do I have a mover? Christine, I'll second it. All in favour? Carried unanimously. All right, so we've already covered off on item 7.1, so then we go to 7.2, which is the internal controls review. Is this back to you, Erin?
It's been a very big month.
Been busy.
So through the chair, the internal controls is a product that we use called, oh my God, my mind has gone blank. Control track. Thank you, Nathan. So we have been using this the entire time that this has been in place, which I think has been about 2015 we started doing them. So the last 2 years we've tried to implement a more rigorous approach to reviewing all the internal controls. Last year was really successful. However, we've sort of tried to go one step further this year. So we've tried to use a lot of frontline staff to review those internal controls. So that was a really great process. So I think that was a really good decision that we made because it not only gave everyone a chance to see why the internal controls were important, but also we tried to do it in line with the same time that the auditors were coming in doing theirs. So there was a lot of discussion around the internal controls and just making sure that we were complying with them properly. So, and with policies as well. We ended up with an overall score of 4.7 out of 5, which was really pleasing. There were a few teething issues this year, so we thought that result was really great. So, and it was in line with what the external auditors were saying as well. So I'll take the report as read, but happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions or comments? No? Sure. I asked lots of questions. So, you know, well done. Like you can see, you know, you've built on prior year knowledge, and this is amazing. Like, you know, there's not many the councils that do it to this extent, and I think you can see that it complements the external audit really well because, you know, they sort of report, as Samantha said, they report on an exception basis, but, you know, with, not that I read absolutely every word in this. Christine, did you read every word?
I look for anything below 5. Now,
yeah, so it's good to see sort of the support there and to get comfort that, you know, you are looking at controls and, you know, mitigating controls to try and, you know, reduce the risk in the organisation. So then you can get comfort that the internal controls are adequate when it comes to signing the financial statements. So well done, and also trying to educate the the organisation and employees as well helps. Getting them trained up ready for audit, that's great. Cool. All right, if there's no questions or comments from anyone, so we have the officer's recommendation that we've noted the internal controls review report. I'll move it. Councillor Davies going to second it. All in favour? Carry unanimously. All right. Item 7.3 is the risk management update. Nathan, did you want to speak to this one?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. So we've been using Control Track as well, and following what Erin's been doing, we've been able to refine our control library. So that is a list of every single control that we use for our strategic, operational and corporate risk, from 381 controls to 231. And that is by rolling up our controls. So we're not so in the weeds as much. From there, that control library, each of the controls have been assigned to a control owner and then a reviewer, which is generally a team leader, manager, exec manager. So 2 divisions I've done training with into how to do a control assessment, which is what Erin's been rolling out already. But we are picking up additional staff that haven't done this before. So that's been actually really good for them. So the control assessments will be, I'm looking forward to seeing what staff actually say they like. And then, yeah, the other 2 divisions I'll be working on over the next month and then rolling that out. And then from there, we'll be able to push out again through Control Track the risk assessments on each of those controls, with having that context information on how well are those controls actually operating. That's pretty much what we're working on, yeah.
In a nutshell. Well done, you two. Like, it's just, as a risk nerd, it's for people that aren't the risks nerds out there, it's amazing to see it gel like that. Like, not many organisations can do what these guys have done. So well done. You're making it a lot of information look pretty easy, and and the easier it's presented, the better people understand it. So that's a really good job. I wish I could do it. The financial controls and the risks and so well done. Any other questions, comments? Deputy Mayor Shanks.
Just I guess to touch on our risk journey. I remember sitting in this room a few years ago, and to be honest, the translation between what the organisation at the time understood as risk and where I could parallel it with risk that I'm managing throughout my industry, I was worlds apart, realistically, because what I saw in the technique was there's a risk avoid. Risk management is not risk avoiding, and again, when we're talking in construction, as I'm sure Wendy would sympathise with, there is no avoid option. We have to deliver, because what sometimes gets missed is the risk of not doing something. And then when you start drilling into the controls and having an appetite to looking at it, not being fearful of it, and seeing them flow through and how they translate to financial management, how they actually because everything that you do in a day has a certain level of risk. You just need to manage it. And as long as you are empowered to follow some processes to allow you to assess consistently, you can actually do business better. That's a general thing, and local government as a whole, I've sort of noticed those buzzwords, the risk appetite of the organisation, and all those key things that sometimes you feel like you're watching Utopia when we start running through it. And again, no disrespect to people in the room, obviously, but it was a real buzzword, and I would almost say there's a lot of organisations that actually said, all right, well, this is the buzzword, this is the thing we need to do. What do we do to tick the boxes? But what we're seeing is actually implementing the reason why the boxes need to be ticked, and then some of the benefits that you're actually being able to see flow through the organisation in your management technique. And then there's also just a general passion on your excitement of managing that risk, which is also really refreshing to see, because burying your head in the sand and avoiding the risk is just not how we can do business. I mean, it's just, we're not in the business to be able to take that as an option. And, you know, that ties to your quality improvement, that ties to your policy resetting. That just, it's a real underpinning sort of move that, asked me 3 years ago if we'd be sitting here in these conversations, you know, I might have a different position. But yeah, look, I'm interested to see where this journey keeps on taking us, because your review processes that you're implementing and monitoring now is only going to show if the way you're doing it is working as well, which then ties back to the budget stuff we were talking about before in the quarterly reporting, and it all ties. But, yeah.
Oh my gosh, your finance speak and your risk speak. It's really developing, it's good. Cool, okay, so you see, you're being educated. Look, Nathan, you're educating, or Nathan and Nathan, you're educating each other. All right, so that's item 7.3, which is the risk management update. Do I have a mover? It's Christine, seconder. I'll second it. All in favour? Carried unanimously. 7.4 is the governance compliance update for Q3. Susie, did you want to talk to that one?
This is a new quarterly report that will be coming to the committee, just to report on those legislative requirements that sit within the governance sphere. I'm not the subject matter experts in say finance, but in the things under the Local Government Act that a council must comply with in terms of policies, confidential orders, and there's a list of those sorts of things. This report is more extensive than I would envisage future reports to be, because it sets up the ground basis by referencing why we're doing things, why the Act says why we're doing it this way, and that's because the Act says. So I won't necessarily include the volume of background information for each of the areas. I think generally we track fairly well. We have had a bit of a blockage was the word that you used before. It's not necessarily a blockage, but we have the confidential orders review and the delegations update hit the same council meeting in February. So I've been working very hard to get the sub-delegations following the updates reissued. However, the piece of work with the finance team, when we were sort of liaising about that with the change to delegations, I sort of put a pause on that and went to focus more on some of the other compliance areas, because I didn't want to be preparing any more instruments of delegation, or of sub-delegation rather, if they were to positions that were going to have that financial delegation revoked. Yep. So I sort of put a pause on that piece of work to do focus. Actually, it was more on the policies. And I've also been working on the confidential orders. It's just hit sort of all at the same time. So I did put some commentary in there to say, haven't quite finished the release of everything yet, but have all the documents collated. And we've implemented a new process to watermark that they're released, because we did have a concerned member of the public who had come across one of the former meeting documents that was under confidentiality, but it had been released, but it wasn't clear anywhere on that document that it had been released. Yep. So now when documents are released, putting a released watermark across the middle, but also putting a little text box in the header, so that when someone first sees it right up the top, it says, this item has been released from confidence by council, and the resolution number and the date. So that hopefully if someone does that again, it was just by doing a random Google search, they know that they don't need to inform us that a confidential document's accidentally been uploaded to our website. So that one will definitely be cleared off well and truly, and I'm hoping to have that one cleared off by the end of the month. But I did not cover policy in this report because I thought the policy schedule covered that off sufficiently, and happy to take any questions about any of those aspects covered in the report.
Any questions? No? Very, very well done. And that's a good, you know, you're saying that you sort of haven't completely finished some of the things, but that's a great format for that report. Like, it's very succinct, and it can sort of, you can see your logic and how you've done it. So, and you know, I think after this meeting, we're confident that you are filling in your days quite nicely, and you have got plenty on your plate. So, just keep going. The only way is through. Just keep going. So, well done, because it is hard. It's hard to get it all together and to make it look like it's easy. Okay. So 7.4, the governance compliance update. The officer's recommendation is that we receive and note the update. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Shanks. Seconder? Councillor Davies. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Well done. All right. Then the final items, item 8, we had items listed for discussion. None. Item 9, questions without notice. There were none. 10 was motions without notice. None. So item 11 is closing the meeting at 8:05 p.m. And our next ordinary meeting's on Tuesday the 15th of July. Thank you. Efficient.